cold. That was the first thing I felt, a deep, biting chill that seeped into my bones. My head throbbed. I tried to open my eyes, but a harsh artificial light stabbed at them. I was lying on concrete, the smell of mildew thick in the air. I didn't know this place. The last thing I remembered was walking home, then nothing. I forced my eyes open. Ring lights perched on tripods formed a cruel halo around me. Cameras at their centers, red lights glowing. My hands were bound with zip ties, wrists burning. My clothes were torn and dirty. I was the center of attention, the unwilling star of some sick show. The silence was suffocating, broken only by my ragged breathing. Panic clawed at my throat as I twisted against the restraints, searching the darkness for any sign of escape. Who did this? Why was I here? Only the cameras stared back, unblinking. A voice crackled through the darkness, distorted, metallic, inhuman. "Welcome, you are the main event," it said, cold and detached. "You're live, broadcasting to a very special audience, the dark web's most popular live stream." The words hit me like a blow. I was the spectacle, not a spectator. Survival is possible, but your audience must be entertained. They crave emotion. They crave feeling. My suffering was their currency, my pain, their pleasure. This wasn't a kidnapping. It was a performance, a deadly one. The voice fell silent, leaving me with the burning gaze of the cameras. The silence now was charged with anticipation. The show had begun, and I was the unwilling star. My first instinct was defiance. I thrashed against the zip ties, pain grounding me in reality. I kicked into the darkness, nothing but empty air. Crawling in a slow circle, I searched for a way out, but the shadows were impenetrable. My bound fingers stretched into the void, only cold, dead air. Desperation grew. I yelled, but the silence swallowed my voice. The cameras watched, unmoving, recording my futile struggle. Exhaustion set in, my wrists bled, my head throbbed. I slumped forward, breath ragged, hope fading. I wasn't getting out on my own. My survival depended on the voice, the rules, and the faceless crowd watching me bleed. The metallic voice returned, slicing through my exhaustion. "Struggle is predictable. It does not earn you much." My life was now a grotesque job, my pain their entertainment. Emotion is our currency, your fear, your pain, your desperation. Every scream brings tips, every beg triggers a vote. My terror was rewarded with a notification chime, my fate decided by a poll. They may vote on which part of you to cut, which tool to use, how long the pain should last. The faceless mob would be my judges, jury, and tormentors. This was their game, and I was the only piece on the board. The rules were clear: scream and get paid, beg and get tortured. The choice was mine, if you could call it a choice. I stayed silent, refusing to play. Let them get bored, I thought. The voice returned, impatient. Your silence is uninspired. The audience is restless. A choice must be made. A monitor flickered on, displaying a poll. What should we do to him first? Option A, break a finger. Option B, use the knife, left arm. The percentages jumped as the audience voted. My fate decided in real time. My silence hadn't saved me. It had triggered the game. The final tally, use the knife, won. The monitor went dark. Silence fell, heavy and expectant. I scrambled backward, heart pounding, knowing what was coming. My defiance had been useless. The first real taste of violence was coming, chosen by popular demand. The darkness moved. A hulking figure stepped from the shadows, face hidden, dressed in black. In his gloved hand, a knife glinted coldly. He moved with chilling purpose, no emotion, no hesitation. My body locked in terror as he pressed the blade to my arm. My scream ripped through the silence, echoed by the digital chime of tips. My pain was their reward. The show had its payoff. I was the price. The knife pulled away, leaving a line of blood on my arm. The pain was real, warm, sticky, pulsing with my heartbeat. Each drop was their entertainment, my suffering a product. The metallic voice buzzed. Emotion has value, your scream was lucrative. I was just a thing to them, livestock. In the wreckage of my mind, a cold idea formed. If pain was the fuel, maybe I had some control. Not over my freedom, but over the performance. I screamed, this time on purpose. The chimes rang out, the audience bought it. A twisted flicker of victory sparked within me. I'd found a new tool for survival. I could fake it. I thought the silence after my performance was a reprieve. I was wrong. A hidden trapdoor opened. Two figures in black dragged a barely conscious woman into the light. Her head lolled, hair matted with blood, feet scraping the floor. Now there were two of us, two rats in the same cage. The cameras shifted, the game had changed. My pain felt small compared to hers. The metallic voice returned, its distorted tone unchanged, as if announcing a new segment on a talk show. Our next guest has been uncooperative, it buzzed. She has not understood the value of emotion. The woman flinched at the sound of the voice, her head snapping towards the unseen speaker. She started to sob, her shoulders shaking. Please, she begged, her voice thin and reedy, please let me go. I wanted to tell her to stop. I wanted to scream at her, don't beg, it's what they want. But the words caught in my throat. I was frozen, a spectator to a horror I knew all too well. I knew what was coming next. As if on cue, the monitor flickered to life in the darkness. The sickly blue light illuminated the woman's horrified face. The poll was up. The question this time was different, more direct. How do we make her scream? The options were brutal, laid out with cold, clinical efficiency. Option A, the pliers, fingernails. Option B, the hammer, kneecap. The percentage bars started their frantic dance. I watched them, my stomach twisting into a cold, hard knot. I could see the numbers for the hammer climbing steadily higher. The crowd was getting bolder. They were bored with a simple cut. They wanted to hear bones break. They wanted something loud, something final. The woman saw the pole. A guttural sound of pure terror escaped her throat. It was a half scream, half sob. No, please God, no, she cried, scrambling backward, trying to get away from the center of the lights, from the inevitable. But there was nowhere to go. She was trapped in the spotlight just as I was. The poll closed. The hammer won with a sickening 72%. The monitor went dark. The woman's pleas dissolved into incoherent, hysterical sobs. She knew what was coming. The waiting was the worst part. The silence that fell was thick with dread, a prelude to orchestrated violence. One of the hulking figures emerged from the darkness again. This one was even bigger than the one who had cut me. In his gloved hand, he held a heavy-looking ball-peen hammer. The polished steel of its head caught the light. He moved towards the woman with the same methodical, unhurried pace. She screamed, a full-throated, piercing shriek of absolute terror. And just as her scream started, so did the chimes. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. They rang out faster and more numerous than they had for me. The audience was loving this. They were paying for this. Her raw, genuine terror was exactly what they wanted. It was the jackpot. The figure in black didn't wait for her screaming to subside. He grabbed her leg, his grip effortless, and forced it flat against the concrete. The woman thrashed wildly, her body bucking and twisting, but it was useless. He was an immovable object. He raised the hammer. I couldn't watch, but I couldn't look away. The world seemed to slow down. The ring lights burned into my eyes. The woman's screams echoed off the damp walls. I saw the hammer descend in a short, brutal arc. The sound it made was not something I will ever forget. It was a wet, sickening crunch, a sound of bone giving way. The woman's scream changed. It went from a sound of terror to a sound of pure, system-shocking agony. It was a high-pitched, inhuman shriek that seemed to go on forever, tearing itself from her throat long after she had run out of air. Her body went rigid, then convulsed on the floor. The figure stood up, the hammer hanging loosely at his side, and retreated back into the shadows without a backward glance. He left her writhing on the floor, her leg bent at an unnatural angle, a dark stain spreading on her pants around the knee. The chimes were deafening now, a cascade of digital noise, a standing ovation for a shattered bone. As I watched her suffer, a cold logic began to cut through my own fear and disgust. I saw a pattern, a terrible, simple pattern. My silence had earned me a vote and a shallow cut, a warning shot. Her defiance and begging had earned her a vote and a crippling injury. They punished inaction, but they punished what they saw as weakness even more. My feigned scream had earned a few chimes, a minor reward. Her genuine hysterical terror had resulted in a massive payout for them. The system wasn't just about creating emotion, it was about escalating it. They wanted more, always more. I looked from the screaming woman to the unblinking camera lenses. I was learning. This whole twisted spectacle was a lesson, the voice, the figures, the votes. They were all teaching me how to behave. They were conditioning me. They were showing me the consequences of different actions in the most brutal way possible. Don't be silent. Don't beg. Don't show weakness. Give them a show, but a controlled one. Give them just enough to keep them satisfied, but not so much that they escalate to this. It was a razor's edge, a tightrope walk over a pit of fire, and I was learning how to balance. My mind raced, performing a dark calculation. Her pain was my lesson, her suffering my guide. Guilt weighed heavy, but survival demanded coldness. I had to act, to control my fear, to become a calculating survivor. In this basement, morality was a luxury I couldn't afford. My final exam was coming. The woman's whimpers faded into silence. She lay still, a broken doll on the stage. The audience had seen enough, now their attention turned to me. I felt the pressure, the need to act before they demanded more. I steeled myself, knowing I had to give them a piece of myself on my own terms. The voice crackled through the darkness. Simple screams are no longer enough. The audience wants intention. My plan was obsolete. I stared at the pliers, break my own finger or hers. The ante was upped. The price now, my humanity. I wouldn't touch her. I couldn't. That was my line in the sand. If pain was the price, it would be my own. I would perform for them, give them the show they wanted. The choice was terrible, but it was mine. I gripped the pliers. This was my act, my defiance. With the pliers in my grasp, the world sharpened. The scent of decay, rot, mildew, old blood clung to the air, promising what would happen if I failed. Every sound, every shadow pressed in. This was no studio, it was a tomb. I knelt in the light, pliers biting my skin, and began to open the jaws. I opened the jaws of the pliers. The rusty hinge groaned in protest. My fingers, bound and trembling, hovered as I chose the pinky, smallest one. I lifted the heavy tool, giving the cameras a long look. This was my act of defiance. I squeezed. Pain exploded, but I had chosen this. I'm not their puppet, I'm still here. The chimes faded. The echo of the dropped pliers died. My ragged breaths were the only sound. The pain in my hand was a roaring fire, a constant, throbbing reminder of my choice. I expected the voice to return, to comment on my performance, maybe to praise my lucrative self-mutilation. But there was nothing, only silence. A different kind of silence. It wasn't the expectant quiet from before. This was a cold, empty void. The lights didn't flicker. The cameras didn't move. It was unsettling. My act of defiance, my desperate attempt to seize control seemed to have broken the script. The game had paused, and I didn't know why. Then I heard it. A new sound. It wasn't a chime or a groan of machinery. It was a faint, rhythmic beeping coming from the darkness behind me. It was slow, steady, beep, beep, beep. It was a sound I knew, a sound you hear in hospitals, a heart monitor, but it wasn't mine. It was too slow, too weak. My eyes shot over to the woman. In the dim light, I saw a thin wire snaking from her wrist into the shadows. They had hooked her up to something while I was focused on the pliers. They were monitoring her. The beeping was her life, displayed in sound, a life that was fading. Beep, beep. The sound was getting slower, the voice finally returned, and the malice in its distorted tone was sharper than ever before. An interesting choice, it crackled. You chose your own pain, commendable, but ultimately irrelevant. A cold dread washed over me, colder than the concrete floor. You see, the voice continued, your choices were never the point. The show requires a finale, and the audience has grown tired of you. The beeping from the woman's monitor slowed further. Beep, beep, The realization hit me like a physical blow. This was never about my survival. It was a process of elimination. I wasn't the star. I was just the opening act for the main event, her death. My defiance had been meaningless. My self-inflicted pain, a pointless gesture. They had let me have my little moment of control because it didn't matter. The outcome was already decided. The show had a schedule. The woman was dying, her life fading out to a rhythmic beat for the entertainment of the crowd. I was just the entertainment between the acts. My pain, my choices, my struggle. It was all just filler content. The unseen enemy wasn't just the voice or the audience, it was the script itself. A script that had been written long before I woke up on this floor. And it always ended in death. The beeping stopped. Silence. The silence after the final beep was absolute. Her death wasn't violent. It was a quiet, clinical fading away, broadcast for all to see. Rage burned through my pain. I was done being a piece. If this was the final act, I would write the ending myself. The big one stepped out, hammer in hand. The world shrank to just us. The final confrontation had begun. The hulking figure stood before me, hammer in hand, a promise, not a prop. This was the final confrontation. I launched myself at him, fury burning hotter than pain. I fought like a cornered animal, biting, kicking, desperate. The camera caught my bloodied face. This was the final frame, a dirty move, a knee, his grip loosened. He fell. The executioner was dead. I had won. I stood over him, breath ragged, pain flooding my body. I had killed a man, but there was no horror, only emptiness. The basement, the cameras, the lights, all unchanged. But I was not. I had survived, but lost myself. The show was over, yet the darkness would play on forever behind my eyes.